Welcome back to Masters in Performance. I'm your host Roel, and in today's episode, I'm excited to introduce Christina Döring. Christina joins me from Germany, and she offers a validating and reassuring perspective as an international student in the UvA Sport and Performance Psychology Master's Program. As you'll soon find out, her story highlights both the opportunities and challenges of navigating the program as a non-Dutch student, from securing internships to dealing with these meetings online. She shares how her master's experiences, though intensive, laid the groundwork for her career, but also why she felt the need to pursue a post-grad course in Germany to develop more practical skills. Now a recently started sports psychologist working in a football club, she offers refreshing honesty about the realities of the field and why she believes continued learning is crucial for success. Christina's reflections are perfect for anyone curious about this career path, especially if you're an international student considering the program. If you are as excited as I am to hear about the day-to-day applications of tools like mindfulness, imagery, and self-talk, you're in the right place. For me, Christina's openness and energy made this conversation a real treat. So let's dive in. Here's episode 3 with Christina Döring. So, Christina, thanks so much for joining me.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No problem. Very excited to do a first online episode of the podcast. We'll see how we deal with the difficulties of the online setting, but I think it would make for a great conversation.
Let's hope so.
Especially because you're the first international guest as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me all the way from Germany.
You're welcome. Always happy to talk about it.
Before we dive into your interest in sports psychology and all, can you just shortly introduce yourself, what you do, what you like to do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Christina. I am from Germany. I studied psychology in my bachelor's in Leiden, and then I did my master's in sport and performance psychology at UvA. So I lived quite a while in the Netherlands. Now I am back in Germany since I finished the degree. So yeah, it's been a while already.
Yeah.
Over a year already, and what I do like sport. I work out a lot. I go running a lot, and at the moment I also work in a psychiatric praxis for youth and adolescents. And I do work with football players in the sport and performance field. So I do two things at the same time. Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
What led for you to be interested in the sports psychology field?
Yeah, that is a bit of a funny story because I started my bachelor's degrees and I had no idea what I want to do in psychology. I knew I wanted to do something with psychology, but I didn't know which direction because I feel like there's so many options. And then I went for a semester abroad in Vancouver. So yeah, I lived there for half a year. And it was really interesting. And there I did a course in sport and performance. No, it was sport and exercise psychology, and I got to know the subject a bit better, and I really liked it. And I was always interested in the mindset of athletes, of elite athletes, and I was always interested in sports in general. So I was like, it's an interesting idea to combine my leisure activity or like my interests in my personal life with my career. And then I saw that there was the program in Amsterdam, and I applied, and then I ended up there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Were there also other programs that you considered, maybe in other countries or?
Actually, yeah, one more in Germany, in Cologne, actually, because there is kind of a known university for sport in general, just sport science, but also sport psychology. But I got the answer from Amsterdam first, and also in the Netherlands it starts earlier than in Germany. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it there. So it was a simple decision.
Yeah, great. So when starting at the UvA, how did you find it to adapt to the program, especially maybe as an
um,
international student?
I liked it. It was really like it was a really cool university. I mean, I knew already from like I knew how it is to study in the Netherlands for my bachelor's degree. It was different, definitely different because we were such a small group, and way more Dutch people than in the international bachelor, which I like though. And yeah, I met a lot of really nice people. And I felt very welcome there, and also the professors and the teachers were very nice and very interactive with us and yeah, supportive. So I felt good there.
Nice. And how did you find the courses? That first block of New Horizons and Essentials courses. What did you take away from that?
I found them really interesting. I mean, they were quite theoretical still, so lots of theories, intense studying for the tests and everything. But I was interested in the subject, or also in the theories, and understand a bit more behind it, and also having this interactive style of teaching where you have to read
Yeah,
to be able to contribute and to be yeah, able to talk about it in the classes. So it forces you to stay on top of it, which is also stressful, but it was still really interesting, and especially with the group of people, like we had a really yeah, good vibe. I guess we were really yeah, got along quite well. So I think that helped a lot.
yeah,
And I mean, like they're all kind of sport interested people, so it's also I don't know if that's a stereotype, but I feel like we were all very like we had that in common, which helped.
yeah. Not even quite a stereotype. It's like you share your interests and your passions, and I think that's definitely stimulates the conversation, and also for you to take up activities perhaps outside of the classes and get together.
Yeah,
Um, Personally, I also found it a really tight and social group to do the studies with.
yeah, for sure.
And the program kind of has this Dutch focus to it, at least in my opinion.
Hmm.
How did you navigate that as a German student and preparing
Yeah,
for a career back home?
yeah. It's. I'm not gonna lie. It's difficult. It's very yeah, Netherlands or like Dutch based. So especially for after you're done with your studies, and also you can also tell from the program that it's was first, or the ideas were in Dutch and then they translated it into to English. We had that sometimes, which was fine in the field of the university, but it definitely made it hard to find job opportunities as an international student. I mean, I moved back to Germany quite quickly. Um, and even there I had trouble, but I feel like that was more generally sport and performance psychology, because it's just yeah, I mean, everyone who did the program knows that it's difficult, especially as a beginner, to find something if you don't want to do another internship. If you actually want to be paid, it's not easy, but it's you have to be patient, and then you start getting opportunities. What I decided to do was actually doing a post grad course in Germany to set my foot here a bit better, like to yeah, get into the network of the German sports psychologists, and also to learn more from sports psychologists being active or being or working here in Germany. And it actually helped me a lot to connect. And the cool thing was in the masters there's also the mandatory internship, right? And that I already did that in Germany, and there I got to know people who also did that post grad course. And that was a bit of the jump into another country, and into yeah, the language barrier is there as well. I mean, if you don't speak proper Dutch, I mean, it's difficult to find a job, even more difficult.
Yeah,
And I didn't have that anymore because I speak German, so
yeah,
it was it was easier.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe let's dive into that internship you did. Then I read online you did it with a research lab, but
Hmm.
just in general, how did the internship searching process go for you? You said you decided to go for Germany, for your home country.
Mm-hmm.
What was the rationale behind that?
It was actually recommended by one of our teachers. They sometimes put uploaded job vacancies for possible internships. They probably did that with you as well. And there was one in Germany from this research lab, from the TSG research lab. And I was like, oh, wait, that is in Germany. And I was the only German in our class, actually.
Interesting. I had a lot more
And yeah,
Germans.
I know we are a lot there, so I was also surprised. But it was actually kind of nice. No, but yeah, I saw that and I was like, wait, I should apply there and just see. And then I talked to a former student who did his internship there as well. And then I decided to apply, and that was the story behind it.
Yeah, currently at the moment, I think the current year of students is getting their talks about how to set up the internship. Can you maybe
Mm.
also for them maybe elaborate a bit on you apply? What does that mean then? How does it go from there?
Hmm. Yeah, so I can tell about my story. So I looked up on the website, and I just sent an email generally that I would be interested to do an internship at their organization, and where I should, if I could send my application somewhere, just in general to show my interest in who I am. I also introduced myself and said what I'm doing, and then they sent me an email back saying I could send my application. To the email address, or they sent me another email address, and then I wrote an application letter and I added my CV, and then they invited me for also an online interview, and then they offered me the yeah position.
Yeah. So starting your internship, what were some of the things you did during your internship? What kind of projects were you busy with?
So it is a research lab. So it was a lot about research in sports psychology. So um, yeah, I helped a lot in the current research projects, which was about in general about mental health in youth football players during the season. That was one project that was going on. It was also a master thesis, and that was I helped with the questionnaires. I also worked with football players who came into the lab because there's this. Wait, what's it called? um, it's this big helix. It's called, and it's a 300-degree screen where you can practice your skills, reaction skills, for
Hmm.
example,
Yeah, like
and
a
play
simulation
games.
environment.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And they did that to train their skills, and I helped there, and I also helped to prepare a workshop when on the applied sports psychologists. Um, so yeah, it was a bit of everything. I mean, a lot of research work, and also to just listen and hear about the applied sport psychologists in that club, um, and yeah, the current research state in general, but also in Germany, and how much you can do with athletes to help them mentally and improve their mental strength. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very nice and supportive, and also a wide environment for gaining all types of different experiences.
Hmm.
What were some of the struggles that you had during the internship, and what were some of the pieces of information that you took away from the internship?
I think one. Let me think a bit. One thing that was a struggle to handle everything because I was also still writing my thesis at the same time, and then you had to write the report. And then I also had to do the supervision online. So I feel like handling everything at the same time was kind of tricky for me. So I would recommend for students to do master thesis first or after the internship and not at the same time.
Yeah.
It is really hard. And you yeah, I didn't really have a life anymore, so I wouldn't recommend it. So if you can, then I would try to do it after each other, and rather just yeah, take your time and graduate a bit later, and don't stress yourself so much about it. That is a personal advice from my side. And then yeah, just being in the working field for the first time. Because I mean, in the bachelor's in the Netherlands, it's not really mandatory to do any internships. So I felt very new in a working area, and were like to be confident to ask questions, and they are always happy to answer your questions. So feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, but it's a confidence of being, yeah, feeling the confidence to ask those questions.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and have yeah realistic expectations and just ask about your questions. That's I think a good advice that I could have maybe done a bit better.
Yeah. You already mentioned it a bit, but I know from some of my fellow international students that those commitments, especially if you're doing the internship and the thesis at the same time, for some of those meetings for the thesis, you have to fly back maybe or travel back to the Netherlands
Hmm.
for your presentation or some of the meetings for your thesis.
Yeah.
Um, what is that like as an international student?
So I mean, well, Germany is not that far, so it was okay. But I was able to organize it that I had most of the meetings before, because I started my thesis before I started the internship, but I wasn't done yet. So I had, I think, a few online meetings. It was always fine to do that. So if you communicate that you're doing your internship abroad, they're very happy to do the sessions online, the supervision sessions online. But of course, for my presentation, I went there. I think I got the offer to do it online, but I
Hmm.
wanted to do it in person. Um, Also to see friends again and stuff. So I combined it. Like I made it into a little trip. You know, I was done with my with everything, and then I just had to go there and present the thesis and see my friends.
Yeah,
So I think if you combine it with something fun, then it's not that bad. But I mean, if you live very very far away, it's obviously a bit different, maybe.
yeah.
But yeah, they're normally really they're very open to make it happen or make it possible for you.
That's great to hear. Yeah. I mean, that's a very different type of experience from, well, not different as in the sense of negative, but very different from my perspective of being able to search for positions here and have no troubles with those kind of stuff for a thesis because
Mm.
you live close by.
Yeah.
But also
Yeah,
good to
no.
hear that they are then accommodating for international students.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. And then you were nearing graduation with your thesis probably wrapped up, with your internship wrapped up. Was that then already in your mind of this post grad course in Germany, or how did you prepare yourself to transition to the professional field?
Mm, you mean if I when I graduated, if I was already thinking about the
Yeah.
postgrad or the career?
What was your plan
Yeah.
back then?
Yeah. So I made a decision to do the postgrad course quite quickly because I felt like the masters went by very fast because it's just a year. And in Germany, for example, it's normal to have 2 years for your masters. So I was like, I didn't feel ready to be in the working field yet. And to be honest, I didn't put myself under so much pressure because I was very busy right in the end of the masters. I did my thesis, or I wrote my thesis, and I did my internship at the same time, and my mind was already busy enough and to think about the future wasn't in there. There was no space. I was like, I need to go away first.
Yeah.
So I went traveling for a month after I finished. And then during that time or after, I was like, okay, now now I'll start to think about my future. I knew I would do the post grad course, so I wasn't completely lost. But I was like, the rest I will figure out when I come back. And that was good because I really needed a break, and it's also okay to take a break. So I came back and I started the post grad course, and I tried to apply for jobs, but I wasn't really sure yet in what area I want to work. So I applied for different jobs. I went to different interviews, and then in the end, I decided to think about doing a second field, to have a second field of psychology to work in, because I made the experience that it's really difficult to find a job,
Yeah.
and especially without experience, like I mentioned earlier. So I was like, maybe I should do also consider doing a second field. And then I was quickly thinking or shortly thinking about doing a second master's, which I then ended up not doing,
Hmm.
but I decided to do a therapist uh, training, because in Germany you have to do a therapist training after you did your master's. um, it's not You're not allowed to just start working as a therapist. You have to do a second degree, or like another degree basically.
Yeah.
And that's what I just started in October basically. So now I'm a therapist in a psychiatric clinic, and working as a sports psychologist as a side job.
Right. So I think that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense because, of course, I tried to do my research for these episodes, and I saw that you finished your master in August of 23. Then it says in October of 23 you had training for a more, yeah, how would you say it, sports psychological coaching and
Hmm.
coaching in licensed sports, which is competitive sport, I think.
Yeah, it's elite sports.
Yeah.
Yes.
So also training there. That's your postgrad, I assume.
Yes, exactly. It's a 1 year training where you have a few weeks of seminars. So it's 3 weeks where you are in one place where you do courses, and there are different professionals coming and teach you about their work, or in general about sports psychology techniques and stuff. And the rest of the time you fill out hours, so you find a job or you find athletes that want to work with you, and you practice basically. And then if you fill out your hours and your supervision, you also supervise at the same time, you have to fill out hours there as well. You get that certificate
Right.
in the end.
Very interesting because you've probably had it as well, but the ISPP and their postmaster is something that comes along in the Netherlands, and then someone from the ISPP comes along and talks about, well, pretty much what sounds like a Dutch version of what you did.
Yeah.
I've heard from several of my students who are internationals, like, okay, I cannot do this. What's there for me? But you
Mm.
were able to find that for yourself.
Yeah. And I really recommend it because I feel like it helped a lot. If you have something like that in your country, or in an international speaking country or English speaking country, because it just gives you a bit more network, more people, connections, and also experience. Because I feel like with the 1 year, it's very theoretical, and to have the confidence to work in the field. For me personally, it helped a lot to just have a year where you're supervised at the same time, so you can always ask questions and they help you if you don't know what to do next. Um, and it was a good transition for me to feel more confident in my skills.
Yeah, great. I think every student needs that. I think the UFA does a great job in supplying you with that theoretical knowledge, but I think what can be so difficult for whether you're an international student or not is feeling that confidence of being ready.
Hmm.
And I think extra courses or even small things of doing an ACT course or mental skills course, whatever it may be, even a short course can give you that confidence of feeling those skills, of
Yeah,
feeling that theory and those skills coming together.
yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I also feel like you get a lot of knowledge through the degree, and you have a base of the theory. But to apply that into practice with confidence, I feel like is very hard. And some people can do it naturally and some or have the confidence to just start. But I didn't. I was like, oh, I'm not sure I could help anyone right now,
Yeah.
to be completely honest. So that course helped me a lot with that.
Yeah. And I think that then brings us to, well, what's probably it's just a few months ago now, right? Finishing with that post-grad course.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I had my final where I had to present my work was in, when was it? Yeah, I think mid of October, so
Yeah,
really, really recently.
really recently. But that does
Yeah.
mean then that you start at your local football club. I say local football club, but they do compete. Like, what would I call it? Like semi-professionally. It's a
Yeah,
notable club in the
yeah,
region.
yeah, it's yes, it is. Yeah, I started there.
You started there before graduating. Was that
Yeah,
part of the post grad of finding those opportunities?
exactly, yeah, it was I filled my hours, for my postgrad course there as well.
And what was your role there during the post grad, and then for this new month you finished? What's your future like there?
Yeah, it hasn't changed yet. I am still doing the same things, but I do individual coachings with some of the players, and I do workshops with uh, the youth team and the first team. That's coming up still. I did already a workshop at one of the training camps of one of the youth teams. And I support the trainers now and then if they have questions. Yeah, that's like broadly said what I'm or like yeah summed up what I'm doing. But my main work is the individual coachings.
Yeah, and practically speaking, how much of your work week are you able to fill with that?
I could feel more,
Okay,
but I'm there usually, yeah, once or twice a week.
yeah, once
Yeah,
or twice a week. So I suppose that does then also leave the door open for what you mentioned before of more this, well, clinical perspective
yeah,
or therapy.
no, for
Could
sure.
you talk a bit more about how that got there?
Yeah, so I always worked a lot with, or I used to work a lot also with children and adolescents. So I had experience in that, and I was also interested in the clinical field of that. But yeah, it was always as a side thing in my head when I decided to do sport and performance. But I feel like in that area of sports psychology, when you work individually or in general, like generally speaking, I know and I heard a lot from also colleagues that it can often be very vague in between. So if you work with them and then it becomes more clinical or it becomes pathological or whatever, you always have to say, I can't work with you in that area,
Yeah,
or at least that's yeah what colleagues also said, and hence why yeah I was like, wait, if you have both expertise, and you're also qualified and you're allowed to work in both areas, you can say, hey, we can also work on that together, and
yeah,
you don't feel uncomfortable or not in your field anymore. And that was one reason why I was like, I could combine it also future speaking if I yeah whatever comes in the future. I would love to work in both fields together, like separately, but also together, and be able to help in both fields. And one more thing, my in my practice where or in the practice where I'm working at the moment, is also a sports psychiatrist.
mm,
She's a youth and adolescent psychiatrist and sports psychiatrist. So she also works in both fields, which fits very well to me.
yeah.
So yeah, I am very excited about that.
It comes a bit as a role model in that sense.
For example, yeah.
Yeah, and do you notice that you are? perhaps even transitioning some of the knowledge from the clinical field into your role at the football club, or perhaps the other way.
For sure, it helps both, like both ways. I mean, you use a lot of tools in both working fields. I feel like sometimes it mixes it maybe a bit too much, and then I have to see that I don't talk like I would talk with a child, or the other
Interesting.
way around.
Yeah.
But in general, it really helps. It contributes both ways. So I can I can use the knowledge or also the tools you use, or the therapist tools in my coachings, and the other way around as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are some of the sports psychological tools that you to bring it back to the master at the UVA? How are they related to the knowledge you gained there?
hmm I would for sure say that I use some of the tools. For example, imagery. I use a lot, or also self awareness, and now I have all the words in German in my head. But let me think. I mean, like one big field is the self awareness and the um, imagery.
Yeah.
And wait, let me think. What's it called
I
again?
can see you're still translating in your head.
Yeah, it used to be the other way around, but now that I'm working, it all switched back to German. um, it's too
You can
late.
search it if you want.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. Mindfulness. That's what I wanted to
Right.
say.
Yeah.
um, Mindfulness is a big tool in both ways. Like I didn't expect to use it so much before I started working in the practical field, because it can do a lot. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting, because what I noticed from the master is that you talk about a lot about mindfulness and its usefulness, even though it's such a wide variety of
Mm,
skills. Actually, it's a field
mm.
of itself.
True. It's a
Um,
big word.
yeah, and then I
Yeah.
suppose that your postgrad taught you to translate this theory and this evidence for mindfulness into actual tools that you can
Mhm.
use.
Yeah, for sure. We had a whole day full of mindfulness, and also the visualization or imagery. I feel like that also can do so much, which I also didn't expect. But yeah, just getting the feedback from people you're working with that it actually is working is
Yeah,
very, very nice. And you don't think about that, or I didn't think of that yet when I was studying. Uh,
yeah. Okay. I also want to talk a bit about what you told before in when coming back to Germany, thinking of this postgrad in the sense of networking.
mhm,
What was the job searching process like for you, and what role did networking play in that for you?
mhm. Um, so I mean, in general, so I started when I came back to Germany. I started applying for jobs in sports psychology, but the problem is that there are not that many vacancies, and if there's something opening up, everyone goes and applies. Like it's way too many people. So if you don't have any experience and you're still doing the course and you're not done with it yet, you basically have no chances,
Yeah,
even if you know people. So it did help with the confidence that it's normal, that it needs time, and that you need to collect experience first. Um, um, and really decide if you want to stay in only that field, or if you want to open up more doors. That also helped a lot to talk about it with people that are already working in the field, having realistic ideas of how it starts and how it takes its time to find your way, and not feeling the pressure of having everything figured out already just after graduating, because that's not realistic.
yeah.
And for that, it helped a lot to talk about it with people who are already working in the field. Yeah.
How did you, in the end, manage to find your position at the football club?
I actually just like emailed a lot of places and introduced myself and said that I would be happy to work with them. And I also said that I'm doing the post-grad course at the moment. I did edit that as well. And then you have to like you will get a lot of rejections or just no answers.
Yeah.
But mainly no answers actually. But yeah, and then I decided to come and move here to Würzburg, and then I was checking out or looking what kind of sports clubs there are here who work professionally or semi-professionally. And there I connected with them, and they were happy to hear me out, and then I introduced myself, and then it all started.
So interesting, because that basically means that what the network for you has meant is not per se so much in the sense of getting you positions, but mostly getting
Mhm,
that
mhm.
confidence and dealing with those
Yeah,
rejections and powering through.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, for sure. That is actually a really good point because yeah, it helped to realize how the field is, and that it takes its time to find your way. That you need the power to go through and maybe have to also do something else at maybe not forever, but we never know. And for that, it really helped to have people or know people that also work in the country. Yeah, so that was the main point, and also have now people to do intervisions with or like to exchange your experience. Yeah, for that it helps a lot as well.
Also think that's so important when you're done with a master and then some people start their own practice, and if you are so isolated and have no intervention, you're not sure if you're doing things right, if you're doing
Hmm.
things wrong.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Such a valuable
that
tool
is
to have.
also really really important point. Yeah.
Yeah. So where you are now is that you have two positions, both pretty recently.
Hmm.
Some would say maybe a new sports psychologist, but also very developed. What do you think is next, and how do you think you'll continue to develop your skills in sports psychology?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, because everything is kind of new still, I will probably stay in this for a bit, and just also do like collect more experience in both fields. And for my training, my therapist training, I also have to work in a clinic, in a psychiatry clinic. So that will come up in the future as well. And with the sport and performance, I will also see what comes next. For now, I will for sure work with my football players, but I'm very open to also yeah explore more sports and see and work with other athletes as well, because I think it can be very different depending on the sport. For example, like yeah, if you do a group sport or a individual sport, it's a different mindset, it's a different preparation, it's so different. And also all the athletes have so many different characters and ways to deal with pressure. And yeah, I think that's such an exciting field to work with, and you can do a lot and you can help them a lot. And it gives me a lot to hear feedback, or in general just to um, work in that area and work in that field. So I'm very open to see what else will come up in the future, or if I will stay in my football field. But yeah, I'm very open and see what comes next for me.
Yeah. I think I'm also maybe I'm not trying to rush you by okay, you're now 1 month in this practice and a few months here. What's next? No, but just interested in.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I'm interested myself. We'll
Yeah, no,
see where I will be.
that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yes, it is.
Let me see a little bit, because I do think that I still want to get a little bit more into your actual day-to-day work and
Mhm,
give people an insight of what it means to apply skills,
mhm,
apply what you've learned. Can you maybe give
mhm.
an example of a regular work week and what type of things you're doing with,
Yeah.
what kind of topics you're tackling?
Mhm. So I am, yeah, once or twice at the football club, and there I usually see different players, and we work on different fields. It really depends. And in my work as a therapist, I'm also still learning. So I am doing a lot of diagnostics, so the WISC test, so intelligence test, and attention tests and stuff like that, or emotional questionnaires also. And I do work with children. Yeah, it's also different fields. So it also depends a lot on what they have, what issues they have, or what problems they have to tackle in their um, everyday life, or if it's, yeah, if it's school problems or problems zu Hause at home. um, and yeah, that really depends. And time wise, I am in the praxis from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. And I am at the football club in the evenings, because they're training in the evenings, or like late afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to maybe say a bit about the general how it goes with the coachings, because maybe their students are interested in a bit more. I usually go that I like someone asks me if we can meet up, and then we meet, and it's usually about an hour, and we try to, like, we talk about what why they want to talk to me about, or what they want to talk about with me, and how we can, yeah, work on that, and define a goal of our coaching, and then try out different skills. And there I use, for example, the imagery, or I use mindfulness tools, or I use, yeah, whatever comes up at the moment, where I feel like maybe that could work, or that could help the athlete. And then I give them time to try it out, and then we talk about it again, and then sometimes we try something else,
Mm.
or it's fine. Yeah, it really depends. That's my way of working.
What are some of your favorite tools to use?
The visualization I really like. So to go through movements in your mind, right, and to try to imagine your environment, what you smell, what you see, what you feel, what you um, hear,
Yeah.
with all your
Trigger
senses,
all the
and
senses. Yeah.
exactly. And then just to go through the movements, like you would actually do it right now, and train that, because we know that it can help a lot, and that it triggers the same areas in the brain than if you do it actually. And that, yeah, I use a lot. I really like that. Of course, there are some people who say, or some athletes that say it doesn't really help me, and some say, oh yeah, it works. And then what else I use is, or what I really like to use, is from mindfulness,
Mm.
like breathing techniques, to find the right tension, to not be over tensed, or too loose.
Yeah, to be in that right
um,
window yeah.
exactly, the curve.
Yeah.
Yes, there I like to use PMR, or breathing techniques as well. I think it's also a good tool to use.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing a bit of your work. I want to close off a bit. I usually have this segment of giving advice, and you've already given lots of amazing advice of doing a post grad, or giving yourself some space, not doing your thesis and internship at the same time.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, what advice would you give to new graduates, or maybe in particular international students, when they're navigating
Mhm.
their early careers in sports psychology?
Yeah. Um, Never give up, and try to stay resistant, and just email people and ask. It never hurts. The worst thing they can say is no, or ignore you, but just try. I feel like that's stay resistant and try.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to get where you're going with, and
Yeah,
keeping that goal
and
in
maybe it
mind.
means and maybe it means doing another internship, or doing a second field. Be open for that as well. Just, yeah, you can make it.
Yeah, but also then keeping the eye on the horizon of what you're trying to reach, and maybe having to do a bit of a sidestep at some points, but
Mhm.
in order to get to that final goal.
Yeah.
To close off, if there are any listeners that may want to contact you to follow your work or reach out and maybe ask questions,
Mhm.
um, where could they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think that's the easiest. Yeah, they can always text me on or connect with me on LinkedIn and then email me there or text me there and then we can exchange email address.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time and your conversation. It's really been a pleasure to hear about this international aspect, and then also your career in broadening out and keeping an eye on the horizon. Yeah. So again, thanks a lot for your time. I think students would greatly appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Christina Döring for taking the time to share her journey with us. If today's episode sparked your curiosity or left you with questions about pursuing a career in sports psychology, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if there are any specific topics or guests you'd like to see featured, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always looking for ways to make this podcast more relevant to you. Next time, I'll be speaking with someone who knows all about defining your personal brand as a sports psychologist and how to market yourself to potential clients. It's going to be an insightful conversation, so make sure you're following Masters in Performance on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to stay up to date. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.